Per launch. We see that as unsustainable for the Artemis program.
This is Artemis, America's 21st century moonshot.
So this is the Artemis 1 space launch system and Orion rocket. This is the first human-rated capsule to be rated for deep space operations. It's the only one capable of returning humans from the moon at the significant speeds that re-enter Earth's atmosphere.
And from a lunar perspective, it's a way of NASA to say, we're back.
We're going back, correct. This is going to be our capability. This is going to be our ride to the moon and our return back home. This is the most complex rocket ever built. We have hundreds of thousands of moving parts in the rocket, and all of them have to line up right during launch to get us through T0 and get the rocket up in space.
Do you two get a sense of that? Just when you look at the complexity, the multi-levels, that how many different things could go wrong?
Yeah, I do. I mean, and it's something that, a lot of times I think about during launch day, all the things that have to line up, but it goes well beyond that, right? It goes to the person stamping off that they inspected a bolt at the factory.
You have to get this mission right for all the missions to follow.
Absolutely. We're certifying a crewed vehicle. So that means that, even though we don't have astronauts on board, we're taking every single step we would as if we had a crew on there, because subsequent missions, we will have crews and their lives are at stake based off the certification data we'll get from this launch.
At Kennedy Space Center's Pad 39B, the Space Launch System, or SLS, stands 322 feet tall, the most powerful rocket NASA has ever built.
NTD Launch Director, your channel.
Launch Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson will give the go for liftoff.
It's a great sight seeing that Artemis vehicle on the pad. I think she is an incredible rocket. She brings a whole new capability to our nation's space program, a new heavy lift capability for deep space exploration. It's groundbreaking. It's going to change the way in which we explore. In here in the Launch Control Center, we spend months and years prior thinking about go, no-go criteria and the rules in which you make those decisions by. You don't want to make those on launch day. You want to have those defined well in advance. We have done a tremendous amount of testing here on the ground, and now it's time for the flight test to test out these capabilities and these systems when it's flying, to send the Orion spacecraft around the moon further into deep space than we've ever gone with a human-rated spacecraft, and then ensure that we can get it back home and that it can withstand the heat of re-entry. And so all of that is important as you get ready to put crew on Artemis 2. And then after that, it's boots on the moon.
The nation's proclaimed goal under NASA's Project Apollo is to land a three-man team on the moon by 1970.
In a Cold War-era space race, America desperately wanted its astronauts on the moon before Soviet cosmonauts.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy, it looks good, Willie.
July 1969. Apollo 11 carried astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. The space race was over.
The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground.
Oh, boy.
You're looking good here. Okay, we're going to be busy for a minute.
ghostly images astonished the world. 2 humans had entered what Carl Sagan called the realm of myth and legend.
Neil Armstrong, 38-year-old American, standing on the surface of the moon on this July 20th, 1969.
Generations imagined the man in the moon. Now a man was on it.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
6 Apollo missions completed lunar landings, but Americans got bored. NASA scrubbed the Apollo program. No one has been back since.
How long have you been working on this?
Well, I mean, I've been working on Orion since 09 or 08.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and it really hasn't changed since then. But that's been the advantage is being involved in from the development and the design phase.
Rick LeBrode is the lead flight director for Artemis 1. His team in mission control in Houston will take over at liftoff.
In a big picture kind of way, why go back to the moon? We want to ultimately end up on Mars. We want to expand our universe. We want to keep venturing deeper into space. And the moon is a perfect stepping stone. You can't take as much water as you need and oxygen, so you got to have a closed loop system that's regenerative all the way. And we need to refine those technologies. We're doing that on the space station right now, but we need to make sure they are working really, really well before we commit to going deeper into space. The moon is just a perfect stepping ground to do that.
Artemis 1 aims to send Orion into a distant lunar orbit, reaching roughly 40,000 miles beyond the moon, the most distant point ever for a vehicle that can carry humans. Orion will reach space roughly 8 minutes after liftoff. Its 4 solar arrays then must deploy on time, followed by a critical engine burn to set Orion's trajectory toward the moon.
The number 1 priority for our mission is to test the heat shield that's on the bottom of the Orion capsule. It needs to be able to withstand the re-entry environment at lunar velocities, because we need to make sure that heat shield will protect Orion and the astronauts when they re-enter on the next flight when they come home.
And how hurtful to the program would it be if it doesn't go right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you that. I don't know, but conceivably it could end the program. It could.
Spaceflight is risky and space unforgiving. NASA has lost 17 astronauts in 3 separate disasters. The point of this uncrewed Artemis 1 test flight is to reduce risks before astronauts climb aboard for Artemis 2.
I'm afraid that people think it's routine. But when those candles light off, it's anything but routine. It is high wire act all the way up. Once you're up there, everything's got to go very smoothly. And then when you're coming back through that 3,000 degree Fahrenheit, coming back, everything's got to work too.
And no matter how many successful launches in a row, the danger is always complacency. You always got to remember, like, this, you got to bring your A game each and every launch.
You got to be at the top of your game, and your team has got to communicate.
We've got a moon-bound rocket stacked with a crew capsule for the first time since Apollo 17 in 1972, just as symbolically, just as a milestone. That has to be exciting.
Oh, this is a big deal, and it is beautiful, and it is a monster. I saw it today. The size just overwhelms you. This time, in that tail of this rocket are 4 space shuttle engines, by the way. They, along with the bigger solid rocket boosters, it's going to pack a punch of 8.8 million pounds of thrust at launch.
Let's talk about the significance of Artemis 1. If it goes well, it's a huge success. If it doesn't go well, how much of a setback is it?
Look, I am an optimist by nature. True, space flight is risky. And there are penalties that you pay because Mistakes are made by human beings. But look at the extraordinary success that we've had over a half a century, with indeed tragic loss of life. But look at the success. And now we're even going further.
Deep space invites deep questions about the birth of our solar system. This is the Lunar Samples Laboratory in Houston, a geologic wonder. In all, 842 pounds of lunar rock and dust collected by Apollo crews. We got a tour from Ryan Ziegler, NASA's Apollo sample curator.
So these 5 rocks are representative samples of the moon, but each one has a pretty good story to go with it. So this is essentially the oldest rock from the moon. That rock is 4.4 billion years old, and the moon might only be 4.4 billion years old. Rocks like this are what let us know how the moon formed through a giant impact. And this one's especially nice because you see that black glass on the outside. That black glass is only 2 million years old. And so that one rock spans 4.38 billion years of lunar history, all recorded within one rock. If you only got to bring back one rock from the moon, you would actually want to bring back something like the one on the end, because it has pieces of thousands of other rocks included inside of it. So you pick it apart, you look at each chunk of rock inside of it, and you would be able to unravel the entire history of the moon from one rock.
But as a group, these 5 rocks, is this the Lunar Rock Hall of Fame?
Pretty much, yeah.
Lots of folks would love to see people walk on the moon again. But from a geologist standpoint, why is a return to the moon important?
If we go get the oldest rocks on the moon, whatever their age are, and we're confident they're the oldest rocks on the moon, that's going to have a fundamental importance for how the entire solar system formed and how it evolved. And that's something that's right now missing from the Apollo collection. They're all very old, but around 4 billion years old, and there's 500 million years before that we still don't know as much about as we could. And so if we can go get the really old samples from the moon, I think that would fundamentally alter our view of the solar system.
So they're talking about going to the South Pole for the first time. So why is the South Pole important?
For humans on the moon, it's important because there are areas of the South Pole that are almost permanently in sunlight. And so you don't have to survive a 14-day, 40 Kelvin, 60 Kelvin, I don't know how cold it is, a freezing cold 14-day night. And so you have continuous power and warmth. And then it also happens to be where the oldest, biggest crater was. And so you get a twofer.
NASA's considering 13 South Pole targets for the first lunar landing later this decade. Artemis 3. A SpaceX lander would carry astronauts down to the surface. In the Apollo era, every moonwalking astronaut was a white man. This new lunar age will be different. NASA has promised the first Artemis crew to land on the moon will include an astronaut of color and a woman.
My name is Kayla Barron. I'm a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy and a NASA astronaut. The Neutral Buoyancy Lab, or NBL, is my favorite place at Johnson Space Center. It is this incredible facility where we learn how to spacewalk. It's a giant pool that's about 40 feet deep, and we have a scale 1-to-1 life-size space station model submerged in this pool. But we're actually using it now to train for a lunar environment. And when we train, it's kind of amazing. You forget all the people around you when you're focused on your training, but we have this huge team of scuba divers who are underwater with us. And they're doing a variety of things, keeping us safe, providing us tools. Standing on the surface of the moon, especially outside in a spacesuit, is kind of hard to fathom. And it's a real challenge, right? To simulate something as foreign as being on the surface of another planetary body with these unique lighting conditions, with how will the soil feel under your feet, what's the slope like, how big are the rocks you have to avoid, what are you really working with? We're trying to make environments that will best simulate that here on Earth. A lot of people ask, why would we go back to the moon? And I think for us at NASA, the answer is really clear. We want to travel to Mars, and Mars is really, really far from planet Earth. And those missions are going to be long, they're going to be complex, and the first human crew to go do that might be testing equipment that we've never had the opportunity to test before. And so we need to learn how to put humans on another planetary body to live there for a long duration. And the perfect place to practice that is the lunar surface. But there's also opportunities to harvest resources, which we'll probably need to do on a Mars mission, to maybe get frozen water and convert it into rocket fuel that will fuel an eventual mission to Mars. And getting things into space and as far as the moon is really hard. And so if we can find ways to get resources from the moon and kind of fuel our rocket based on resources that are already available in space, that could enable these missions a lot sooner.
This is the Orion mock-up here at the Johnson Space Center, and we use this for a variety of purposes.
Actually, it feels roomy.
By capsule standards, it's very roomy. Orion is a 5-meter capsule. Apollo is about a 4-meter capsule. And the net result, we're about 50% bigger inside, over 300 square feet.
But you have room for 4 people rather than 3 people with Apollo.
Correct. We're going to take 4 people back and forth to the moon, and we are also intending to fly those 4 people for longer periods of time.
Orion could support astronauts for up to 3 weeks in deep space. But long-term, NASA intends for Orion crews heading to the moon to dock first at a way station called Gateway. It's designed to be a space station in lunar orbit and a launch point for astronauts to head down to the moon's surface.
When we went last time, the goal was land a person on the moon and return them safely to Earth, and we did that. This time it's a little bit different. It's about a sustainable, long-term human space exploration program. Our goal is really not the moon, our goal is Mars. The moon is the first step. So this time, we're architecting the program to make sure we stay longer, make sure we can grow, make sure we're developing the building blocks that are going to allow us to travel to Mars.
So more complicated.
Yes, it is.
What do the astronauts want?
Reliability, comfort, performance, and we can support more people for a longer duration. And we're designed to travel further into space than we've ever gone before.
Why did it take so long and cost so much to design a spacecraft to go to the moon?
Well, I'll start by saying it's a challenging problem, and it's only been done once before, so there's a lot of things you have to think about. And this time we're building a more sustainable spacecraft, which as I said, we're building to be more reliable and also longer duration. So we're taking our time to get it right.
But the costs for Artemis have ballooned, and for that, many critics fault NASA itself. One of them works for NASA. He's Paul Martin, the agency's Inspector General, its in-house watchdog.
Your office has produced several audits of SLS, Artemis. What did those audits find?
We found that the individual components that make up the Artemis program are years behind schedule, and in some cases billions of dollars over budget. Returning humans to the moon is an incredibly technically complex mission, so we don't underplay that. But NASA has had historically difficulty in its project management and cost estimating.
And what is the price tag?
Well, the price tag, if you're looking at what NASA has spent and will spend from fiscal 2012 through fiscal 2025, $93 billion. And what we've also determined is that the individual cost for Artemis 1, 2, 3, and 4 is $4.1 billion per launch. And that is just the cost for that rocket, that capsule, and that ground infrastructure. This is not the tens of billions of dollars that were spent in development costs to put that rocket and that system on the pad.
$4.1 billion, and you use the rocket once and throw it away.
That is a concern. This is an expendable, single-use system. Unlike some of the launch systems that are out there in the commercial side of the house, where there are multiple uses, this is a single-use system. That concerns us enough that in our reports we said we see that as unsustainable for the Artemis program.
A reusable rocket would drive down costs, possibly from billions to millions, and is something Elon Musk and SpaceX have in development. But for now, SLS, the rocket that will propel Orion to the moon, is NASA's only deep space option.
The fact is that when you press the edge of the envelope into a new commit the resources. I believe that a vast majority of the Congress and the White House wants to do that, and that's what we're going to do. You know, NASA is the one place where Republicans and Democrats come together and they support it. But walk into a classroom, look at those kids. You talk about space, look at the excitement. That is our future.
Do you think space kind of brings out the little kid in everybody?
It certainly does in me.
All right.
You know, when I was a young girl, about third grade, the end of the Apollo program, I remember watching those moon landings with my classmates. You know, they're bringing the TV on the cart. It was a big deal when the cart came in. And I remember being so curious about that, about landing our astronauts on the moon. And I can remember looking up as a young child at the moon and thinking about that. And I find myself many mornings when I come out to go to work and the moon is up in the sky, I will look up and I will think, we're coming back. And we're coming back soon.
In this new chapter of the lunar age, NASA intends to establish a human presence on the moon for decades to come. But make no mistake, space is always hard, expensive, and unforgiving, as once again, NASA looks to turn science fiction into science fact.